Okay, so I want to use conditionals, logic, and a little bit of testing to write a very stupid computer programming pun. So bear with me here. So I would like to answer this question, would you like a cookie? And if the user says yes, then I would like to email them a cookie, like from a website. This is very dumb, but it's what I've got. So let me throw in a little bit of like computer programming methodology here, which is I'm going to write this program in two pieces. I think that answering the question or just figuring out what the user answered to the question is one part of it. And then the other part of it is going to be this part where I actually email them this cookie thing. I'm not going to do that as part of this video. We might get to that later in the semester. For right now, I'm just going to fill in a dummy function there. And so I'm going to go down here a little ways, and I'm going to define SendCookie. And right now I'm just going to say print sending cookie dot dot dot. And then I'm just going to add a little comment here to myself. Idea, email user a cookie, fill this in later, right? So that's my idea. Right now, all it's going to do is print out sending a cookie, right? And the way I would like to do this is I have this, right now I have answer is the result of this input string. Okay, so if I run this, I get this, oh, and I'm noticing that my cursor's on the wrong line. So I'm going to put a /n in here, write a carriage return to get it to kick to the next line. Okay, so would I like a cookie? Yes, I would like a cookie. Absolutely. Upkiss happens because I didn't do anything with this answer, right? Then answer is stored as a string into the answer variable. And so here's my kind of, the logic I'm trying to display is this statement about, well, oftentimes I need to like parse what the user said. And so there's this like, if they said this thing, then I should do this. And if they said this thing, then I should do this other thing. And maybe then otherwise something. And that's exactly the structure that Python needs for this. So you simply write if answer, right, equals, double equals is what's called a test, right? So that's this kind of testing part. So the single equals makes something, right? It assigns. So that would store, right? Whereas the double equal says, are these the same? And what it means by are they the same is, are they the same kind of thing? Like, sorry, are they the same? Now, what the same means in here is a little bit frustrating. So let me leave it at are they the same right now, and we'll just deal with it for now. So if they answer yes, right, then we'd like to call the SendCookie function. So I'm going to call the SendCookie function if they answer yes. And why is it whining? Undefined name SendCookie. Oh, okay. So I defined this function below using it, and so that needs to go up a little higher. And I should really comment that. Define the SendCookie function not completed. And this would be something that you'd want to tag in version control, right? You'd want to put this comment on your commit or whatever if we were using GitHub to do this. So we'd say not completed yet. And then it takes nothing and returns nothing, so I don't really need to worry about specifying in the comments what the return type is or anything. Okay, so if they answer yes, we'll call the SendCookie function. You'll notice my error message went away. Otherwise, right, if they answer no, so that's like else if, is elif in here. So that's otherwise if this happened. So if the answer isn't exactly yes, then it's something else. And if that something else is exactly no, so I'm doing another check here, right? So if the answer is exactly no, then we'll print out something like, too bad. Like, whatever. I guess you didn't want a cookie. That's sad. And then there was this third option of like, if they answer something else, like if they don't say yes or no, they just say like cat, then this really shouldn't tell them too bad or send them a cookie. It should just be like, wait, what? And this is really common with user input. You're always going to want to ask a question, you're going to get an answer, you're going to have a couple cases that make sense, and some other case that just happens. And usually that last case is just going to loop things back around, but we don't have while loops yet. So for right now, I'm just going to ask this question once, and it's going to say, if yes, then we'll send a cookie. If it's no, then we'll print out too bad. And otherwise, which is just else, and you'll notice all three of these got a colon and an indented block after them. Oops. So else will print out what, right? Like, what are you after? So let me just check those three cases. So if I hit run, would I like a cookie? Yes. Sending cookie. Okay, so I got the result of the send cookie function at least. Okay, and then if I run it, would I like a cookie? No, I would not like a cookie. Too bad. Okay, if I run it again and I put cat, I get what? Okay, good. All right, if I run it again and I put yes with a capital Y, I get, oh shit. Okay, so this is one of those things. This is what I meant by it's a little bit frustrating of is it exactly, right? So this is the answer exactly the string lowercase y, lowercase e, lowercase s? No period. Okay, so this is a bit of a deep dive into string parsing and some other options, but let me just suppose that firstly, I wanted to accept capital Y-E-S. So I would say if the answer is exactly yes, or, and you don't need another if here, so don't put another if here. So if the answer is exactly yes, or if the answer is exactly capital Y-E-S, right, then we'll send the cookie. So let me run this. Okay, repel stopped responding. Set face. Let's try reloading. This probably happens to you guys fairly often. Ah, okay. Good. This is fun. We found an error. So, P.S. Errors are pain in the ass. Totally. But you also see them almost all the time that you're writing because things are almost always wrong. Because when they're not wrong, they're done. And then you turn them in, right? So you really only see these things, I mean, every time you push the go button, probably. So what does this one mean? EOL while scanning string literal. Okay, so something happened while it was scanning a string. Wait, what's a string? Okay, so notice this little caret. It's pointing at this colon here at the end of the yes string. Okay, so I think there's a problem with the yes string. And EOL means end of line. EOF, which is pretty common, means end of file. So if it hit end of line, that means that it thought this colon was part of the string, and then it hit the end of the line. Oh, and it thinks the colon is a part of the string because I forgot a second quote. So if I hit run now, I get, would you like a cookie? And yes, I would like a cookie. Okay, now it's sending one. Okay, now you don't really want to deal with all the possible typos here, right? So one thing you can do is say, all right, look, I'm just going to take the user's answer and force it all to be lowercase. And I'm gonna let my other option be lowercase y. So would I like a cookie? Yes. Uh-oh. String object has no attribute lowercase. Okay. So this is one of those things like I forgot the syntax exactly. I guessed it didn't quite work. So what do? Frickin' Google it, man. Like Python string to lowercase. String to lowercase. Lower is a built-in function. Okay, let's look. Dot is lower. Okay, so is lower, which looks like I slower, is lower returns whether something's lowercase or not, and dot lower converts the string into lowercase and then returns it. Okay, so if I go back into my conditional here, it's not lowercase, it's just lower. Okay, and capital Y, yes, I would like a cookie. Rad. And now if I do regular little y, I also get a cookie, which is pretty rad. So I probably want to do a answer dot lower for that one too. That's a bit of an edge case. You really could just include another or. You could also do some and things in here. Do be careful that if you have a couple things with an and in between them and one thing with an or in between it, there's a little bit of like parsing that you need to do with that. So just be aware that logic can get a little bit complicated. If you have two things that you're saying and in between, they both have to be true for the result to work. If it's or, one or the other being true will work. They would both have to be false for it to not work, right? So in this case, right, I've got this or in between, which means that either the answer converted to lowercase is the string yes, or the answer converted to lowercase is the string y. And then I probably want to do that same thing with no. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy that condition here, since it's working, and then put in my two N, O, and N here. For whatever reason, it's usual to convert things to lowercase instead of converting things to uppercase. I don't know. Okay, so in other languages, they have symbols for or and and. In Python, there's just write out the word or write out the word and. One word of caution. Let me throw in another if statement here. So if I say something like answer or C, and then just put a print line in here. All right, so if I would like a cookie and I just flat hit enter, it says So let me put something in here like if answer is yum or C, I'll print yum, right? So this is just totally separate. I'm just doing this to begin with. I'm saying if the answer is actually all of yum or C, then I'll print yum. And this is going to be a little weird because if I just type in garbage and hit enter, I get yum. And the reason for that, the thing is, C, the string, is always treated as true because it's not empty. So you need to put all the things that it could be, right? So if answer double equals yum or answer double equals C. So you're going to have to list that answer double equals part is going to have to go in both pieces. Otherwise, this bit of code will always get executed because C is always true. It's a really common thing that students do, and it's super confusing because you want to say, like, look, I'm trying to just list out things that are an option here. If you want to list out options, you want to do something a bit more complex. So I'm going to just comment that thing out. You guys know you can do Control / to comment things out. Okay, let me ask another question here. So let me just ask a question. Oops, that's not how this works. Let me ask, oops. What's your name? And then I want to do something like, if this is one of the commonly used, like one of the names I commonly use as examples, then we'll chuckle a little bit to ourselves, right? So if answer in, and then I can put a list. So if the answer is in Steve or Bill, then I'll print hey, right? Because I'm kind of chuckling to myself. And otherwise, right, so else we'll print hi, right? So if it's one of our kind of special people, we'll do this printing out this kind of more enthusiastic greeting, and if it's just a regular person, then we won't. This is crappy customer service, don't do this. But it's going to make me run through the whole cookie thing, right? So it's going to ask, would I like a cookie? And I'm going to hit and it's going to tell me too bad. Oh, and I forgot a new line, but what the heck. So if I type Bill now, since Bill is in this list, right, then it's going to print hey. So this is one way to get a whole laundry list of things accomplished. So if you want to have a whole 30 options that result in the same thing, and then anything else goes somewhere else, you can do that with this, like, I'm just going to list out all the exceptional, or all the acceptable options, and then I'll parse through later. Okay, so, good, my cookie thing's still working. If I say Bob, then I get the regular greeting. If I was to say Steve, I would get the kind of more enthusiastic greeting. I don't have to lower cases here, right? So if Bill forgets to capitalize his name, he gets a less enthusiastic greeting, which is, in my case, I think a feature, not a bug. So let's go through and comment this quick. So ask the user if they'd like a cookie. Store into answer variable. And this is a bit much, right? If you're using a good naming convention, you probably don't need this. This was a caution C, capital C. It doesn't matter whether it's capital or lowercase, it's always treated as true anyway. The only one that's treated as false is the empty one, where it's just single quotes right next to each other. So caution, C is always true. Oops, capital T. So this will always print yum. Okay, and then for our next one, lower converts to lowercase, and that's just, otherwise I don't really think this line needs a comment, right? Because this is saying if the answer is yes or the answer is why. Like, dude, that doesn't need a comment. Then we'll send a cookie. That also doesn't need a comment. Like, if you want to say you're calling the send cookie function on nothing, I don't think you probably need to do that. It might bear noting here that the send a cookie function isn't completed, but otherwise, it's just what it is. Like, I don't, initially here we probably should have been marking calls, but after you guys have used a few of them, you probably don't need to anymore. Notice, if you name it my function, you darn well better be commenting that crap because I don't know what that means. But send cookie is a pretty obvious function name, so if it's got an obvious nice name, it doesn't need a huge ton of commenting, right? So else if is just a new word here for me, and I'm probably going to say that elif, and I'm sure that makes me a moron, and it probably makes me look like a total goober, but I'm going to do it anyway. So else if answer is roughly no, right, then we'll print out too bad. That also doesn't need a comment because it's pretty friggin' obvious what it does. This else is just otherwise, right? So if the answer wasn't yes, roughly, or wasn't no, roughly, then we'll print out this what line. This is going to ask the user their name, right? Which is also storing it in the answer variable isn't really needing, doesn't need much of a comment. This part actually does need a comment because there's this kind of reason about like, why did I do this? And really that's kind of a more philosophical question. And so that should be included in the comments because it's not obvious in the code. Like, obviously, if the answer's in this list, then we'll print hey, and otherwise we'll just print hi. And so I think I need a little bit more in the comment there. And that's going to be something like Steve and Bill are VIP members, so they get super enthusiastic greetings, right? So some kind of a like external logic about why is it that Steve and Bill are getting different treatment is kind of really what the comment in this case demands. And that's just so that when somebody else reads this later, they know why Steve and Bill got an enthusiastic greeting. Because odds are, code that's working doesn't get read very often. Once it's broken, though, it might be broken a ways down the line. And if it broke, somebody else is going to need to fix it. And so if it's commented well, then they know that Steve and Bill are VIP members, and then they can update this list to include more VIP members, or they can remove this treatment of VIP members that's different. It also helps, right, if you're trying to search through a couple thousand lines of code about VIP members and how they're treated, if you put that in a comment, it'll come up. Does that hopefully kind of make sense? So this is conditionals. The logic is just this or and statements for now. There's more kind of logical manipulations that you can do, and or with parentheses and some kind of other stuff. And then testing, it's just important to know that the double equal sign is a check. Oh, you can check whether something's not equals to with a BAM equals. So, and I think you can actually use the keyword not. So if we had this situation flipped where we didn't like Steve and Bill, we could put if the answer is not in Steve and Bill, then we'll give the enthusiastic greeting. So let me just double check that that's working. Yeah. So you can use the not keyword. If you want to do a logic check, you just replace that first equal sign with a exclamation point. Or you can write, or you can put the not keyword in there. Don't put it in Don't put it in as not one equal sign. That won't work. All right, guys.